If you're serious about understanding how humans survived long before agriculture, empires, and standing armies, then you're in the right place. Before we go any further, make sure you subscribe to the Global War Archive channel and share this video with fellow historians and survival-minded researchers. What we're unpacking here isn't lifestyle advice or trend-driven nutrition talk. This is deep human history, and it matters because the way prehistoric people fed themselves shaped warfare, migration, resilience, and survival itself. Let me start with a hard truth that hooks most people once they really think about it. For more than 90% of human history, there were no farms, no stored grain reserves, and no supply chains. Entire populations lived or died based on their knowledge of wild landscapes. Foraging wasn't a hobby or a supplement. It was the foundation of survival, strategy, and adaptability. When we talk about prehistoric diets, we're really talking about the original logistic system that allowed humans to spread across continents, survive ice ages, and outlast predators far stronger than themselves. Why foraging was the backbone of prehistoric survival. Long before organized conflict or permanent settlements, early humans such as Homo sapiens and even Neanderthals depended on diverse, opportunistic diets. Archaeological evidence from Africa, the Levant, and Europe shows diets built from wild plants, tubers, fruits, nuts, insects, shellfish, and game animals. What's critical here is diversity. Prehistoric foragers did not rely on a single food source. They understood seasonal cycles and moved strategically to follow food availability. This has direct relevance today. One of the biggest vulnerabilities in modern survival planning is over-reliance on narrow food sources. Prehistoric groups survived droughts and cold snaps because they knew dozens, sometimes even hundreds, of edible species. And, a modern survivalist can actually apply this by learning just 5 to 10 wild edible plants in their local region and understanding when each becomes available throughout the year. What bones, teeth, and tools reveal about ancient diets is really quite fascinating. We don't guess at prehistoric diets. Instead, we reconstruct them through isotopic analysis of bones, dental wear patterns, and residues on stone tools. Teeth with heavy grinding wear point to diets rich in fibrous plants, while protein-heavy diets leave different chemical signatures in bone collagen. In coastal regions, shell middens show that marine resources were exploited systematically, not just opportunistically. What this teaches us is precision. Prehistoric foraging was not random scavenging. It was informed decision-making based on observation and experience. Applied today, this translates into careful identification and preparation. For example, many wild tubers are edible only after soaking or cooking to remove toxins. Ancient people knew this. They passed that knowledge orally for generations. A practical step today is to practice preparation techniques, not just identification, before you ever need to rely on wild food. The misunderstood role of meat in prehistoric foraging. Popular culture often portrays prehistoric humans as constant big-game hunters. The reality is more nuanced. Hunting was risky and energy-intensive. Foraging for plants, small animals, and insects provided consistent calories with far less danger. Meat was valuable, but it was not guaranteed. This matters because it really reframes survival priorities. In a real-world survival scenario, calories spent must not exceed calories gained. Prehistoric people understood this instinctively. Modern application means, prioritizing low-risk, high-return food sources like nuts, berries, eggs, and fish traps before attempting, large-game hunting. Seasonal movement as a survival strategy. Foraging societies rarely stayed in one place year-round unless resources were unusually abundant. They moved with the seasons, following ripening plants, animal migrations, and water availability. This mobility reduced pressure on any single ecosystem and, importantly, prevented starvation. For historians, this explains migration patterns and early territorial conflicts. For survivalists, it's a lesson in flexibility. If one area becomes depleted or unsafe, relocation is not failure, it is strategy. Even today, understanding when certain areas are resource-rich versus barren can determine long-term sustainability. Knowledge really is the most valuable survival resource. Prehistoric foraging knowledge was cumulative. Elders taught children which plants healed, which killed, and which sustained. This knowledge was often guarded and shared selectively, giving groups a strategic advantage over rivals. Applied today, this reinforces the value of documentation and practice. Field notebooks, local plant guides, and repeated hands-on experience matter more than abstract theory. A person who can reliably identify and process wild food holds a form of power that has existed since the earliest human conflicts. What modern society forgot, and why it matters now. Agriculture, well, it brought stability, but it also narrowed diets and increased vulnerability to crop failure. Prehistoric foragers avoided this trap through diversity and adaptability. In an era of climate uncertainty and disrupted supply chains, those lessons are no longer academic. You don't need to abandon modern life to apply this knowledge. Start by learning what grows wild within walking distance of your home. Practice preparing one wild food per month. Study seasonal cycles the way ancient people did, not as theory, but as lived observation. Why the hidden history of foraging still shapes human survival. Foraging is not primitive. It is sophisticated environmental intelligence developed over tens of thousands of years. It allowed humans to survive disasters, wars, and ecological collapse long before written history recorded any of it. If you're serious about understanding human resilience, warfare logistics, or survival under pressure, then prehistoric foraging isn't a side topic. It's foundational knowledge. If this deep dive added value to your understanding of history and survival, subscribe to the Global War Archive channel, share this with fellow historians and survival enthusiasts, and stay tuned. We're here to preserve the lessons history paid for in blood, hunger, and endurance.